So today we have, as a guest, we have a special guest. We have as Dr. Amit Goswani. He is a physician. He brought a last book. It's called the Everything Answer book. And he's here to tell us about the book. It's amazing. I can't wait to read it. And it talks about how quantum physics affect our understanding of thoughts, feelings, dreams. And I let you, Dr. Amit, thank you very much for being here first, and I let you to explain us about how quantum physics affect the way that we see lives, the way that we see the life, and the way the dreams and thoughts.
First of all, thank you, Pablo, for inviting me. This is the thing. People hear the word quantum physics and immediately conclude that it's very complex, it's physics, it does not apply to life, all those things. But this has never been true. From the beginning, it was very clear that the message of quantum physics is properly understood will revolutionize our entire worldview. And beginning with the 90s, the proper meaning was very clear. But still, whether it applies to everyday life evolved gradually. I started working on it seriously only when I went to a conference with Dalai Lama in 1999 in Dharamsala, India, where the Dalai Lama urged us that all this new talk of paradigm shift and what about society? Why don't we try to apply our paradigms to social change? I took that very seriously. And as a result, I first saw that indeed the ideas can be easily expanded to include medicine. So I wrote a book called The Quantum Doctor. And then I got so encouraged by applying it to various social problems that I started a movement called quantum activism, which is a movement to not only change the self according to the new ideas of consciousness that are developing under the quantum worldview, but also social change, that we must institute social change as we change ourselves. So that idea gave rise to a couple of books, and then I wrote a book on quantum creativity, explaining that everybody can make these changes, everybody can be creative, which is the unique gift of the quantum worldview. And then I applied it to quantum economics. So now we have the situation very, very clear. The quantum worldview applies not only to medicine, psychology, but even for economics. Now I'm busy writing a book on quantum politics. So that's the broad outline of what we have been doing. But of course, your question probably is more about how quantum physics applies to everyday world, and what we have been doing with the idea, right?
For example, how quantum physics help us to understand dreams, for example.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning of quantum physics a little bit. Quantum physics started in 1900 when Max Planck gave us the idea of the quantum, which means a discrete quantity of energy in the original thinking. A quantum meant a discrete quantity of energy. Now, energy was thought to be continuous before, so this was a surprising idea to some extent, but not really revolutionary. The revolutionary idea emerged when Einstein was the first to point out that light is a form of energy. But if you think that light is quantized, namely it consists of discrete objects, which is like elementary particles, matter consists of elementary particles, but light before then was thought of as waves. And experimentally, it's very easy to see that light is wave. So how could light be both wave and particle? This was the mystery. This was what began quantum physics proper. Then this idea was supplanted by the idea that matter also consists of both wave and particle, although it initially was discovered as particle, but indeed the particles are not the only picture of quantum objects of matter. They are also waves. And then came the mathematical formulation, which clarified things quite a bit. Although people did equivocate and did not understand the message immediately or did not accept the message immediately, but the message of the equations is very clear, no ambiguity, which is that the waves are waves of possibility. They are not talking about waves in space and time. They're talking about waves in a different domain than space and time, called the domain of potentiality. As soon as we accept this, then the next question is, well, what differentiates domain of potentiality and the domain of actuality, space and time? What is the difference? And that difference is that in space and time, communication requires signals. Outside of space and time, in the domain of potentiality, communication is instantaneous. This knowledge, pointed out by Einstein in 1935, took a long time to verify, 1982, and this is what really arrested the movement towards finding the meaning of quantum physics. But in 1982, experiment by Alan Aspect and his collaborators in Paris verified Einstein's idea that indeed objects can communicate instantly through the domain of potentiality. And this is why this worldview of quantum physics is revolutionary and applies to everyone. Because who else talks about two domains of reality? Who but spiritual traditions? Who but mystics? Who but people who follow religion? The religious message was interpreted badly by scientists, saying that they are talking about outer space when they talk about heaven. But religions never intended to talk about outer space as heaven. The intention was always to have a transcendent domain of reality outside of space and time and an immanent domain of space and time. This is the religious view of the world. This is the spiritual view of the world. Every spiritual tradition, Hinduism, Christianity, Buddhism, Taoism, Judaism, Islam, everything is based on this idea of two domains of reality. So from the beginning then, quantum physics has hinted at two domains of reality, and in that hinted at a revolutionary integration of science and spirituality. So in that way, it always has applied to ordinary people because everybody is interested to spirituality. When you analyze, Pablo, what you find is astounding. This domain of potentiality is nothing but our consciousness. Consciousness is the ground of all being. Consciousness holds the possibility of matter, and then when consciousness chooses out of this potentiality the actual event of experience, matter become actualized.
So if we think on time, for example, and space, it's are like walls that block us to feel that consciousness, right?
Yeah, actually, it is us, our seeing, that actualizes everything. All matter, whether it's solid matter, liquid, doesn't matter. Every material object begins as a possibility for consciousness to choose from. When we choose, then matter becomes actualized. But then the revolution can be taken further, because if matter is this way, quantum possibilities for consciousness to choose from, then I ask the question that is there evidence that mind is also quantum? And there is. And therefore I suggested boldly that all the experiences of the human being, namely not only material experience of sensing, but also the vital experience of feeling, mental experience of thinking, and even archetypal experience of intuitive. All of these four experiences are experiences that originate in consciousness. That's possibilities of consciousness. When consciousness chooses, then they become actual experiences in their respective world. In other words, there is separate mental world, separate vital world, separate archetypal world, and we don't live just one world of matter. We live in these four worlds of experience. Consciousness encompasses them all. Consciousness is the ground of all these beings in all these four worlds.
Wow. So, and like for example, thoughts. Like like how can you explain that quantum physics like allow us to see thoughts particularly? Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
I missed a word.
yeah, no, like what I'm asking is like how can we see thoughts? How can we understand thoughts? Like how quantum physics can help us to understand thoughts?
Okay, so this is a very good question, because thought, the way a materialist scientists understand it, is only part understanding. Thought has two aspects. One aspect is computable, which is the algorithmic rational aspect of thought. In this aspect, it's like a syntax of grammar. In this aspect, we can rationally take one logical aspect to another. For example, I can say I'm a human being, therefore I have a finite lifetime, therefore I can die. We can make all these logical conclusions. This is rational thinking, and this is computable, algorithmic. But there is another aspect of thought which cannot be computed, which is the meaning of why I'm saying what I'm saying. If I start telling you all of a sudden that I'm a human being, I die, and all this, there is a hidden motive. There is a meaning behind my talking like this, right? And very soon we'll talking about, why are you talking about your death, Amit? It will say, what is going on? Are you feeling morose or something? And that will start a conversation. So human beings do not just think in terms of computerized way about information. They also think about everything that we say has hidden meaning on it. It not only has syntax, a grammatical structure for communicating information, but also has a meaning in it, and that meaning computers cannot process. So how does quantum physics explicate thought? It explicates both meaning and the syntactical aspect, both meaning and content. It's not just about content, it's also about this meaning aspect, the semantic aspect of thought. And this is the contribution of quantum worldview. So in this way, we not only can understand thought, but we also take the understanding of creativity further. Because creativity researchers define creativity as discovery of new meaning. That's what mind does. Mind really is not an information processing world. Mind's real objective is to process meaning. And then when we make a software of the meaning in our brain, it becomes information, and then the brain can process it.
Mm-hmm. So, and what about intuition?
What about vision?
Intuition.
Intuition. Well, intuition is a little more subtle. So let me explain what we intuit. Plato first theorized that we intuit archetypes. And then Aurobindo made it very clear that archetypes are supramental, beyond the mind. What does that mean? We do not have the capacity of making direct representations of archetypes as of yet. We cannot, for example, make direct representation of an archetype which we all know and highly devote ourselves to, which is archetype of love. But think about it. We really do not have any idea of what love is in terms of seeing it face to face. We make mental representation of love, or we make a representation of love in feeling. For example, women especially, they talk about the heart. When they talk about the heart, they are talking about love. Why? Because they have made a representation of love as a feeling in the heart. Men, on the other hand, when they talk about love, they basically think about love. And thinking about love leads to various things that you do if you are in love. But none of these things, neither the thinking nor the feeling, can explain what love really is. This is why we call love by so many names. Romantic love, and then there is compassion, there is agape, there is empathy. All of these things are talking about love in very different ways. This is because their love really is an archetype, beyond thinking, beyond feeling. And intuition is about intuiting these archetypes. This is why intuition is such a coveted experience. If we start intuiting, then we can become familiar with these archetypes and eventually undergo the creative process and take a look at the archetypes slightly longer than when we intuit. And that way we develop the great arts, great music. Everything is about love, right? The arts are always talking about not only the archetype of beauty, which we recognize, but also archetype of love.
So, and in the Everything Answer book, you talk about the meaning of dreams.
Meaning of?
Of dreams. Meaning of dreams.
Yes. Dreams are a particular inroad towards meaning. We get very busy with our waking life, the external life. The external stimuli are very enticing. Our external relationship with the world and people, of course, they are very, very enticing, very, very important to us. But where do we actually live, Pablo? Where do you actually live? If you ask this question, you will find that you live in your psyche much more than you live in the external world. Because we think and think and think. That's how we construct our world. We really live in the psyche. Of course, women would live also in the heart. So they live in psyche in different domain of the psyche, namely in the vital world of feeling rather than the mental world of thinking. But both women and men, they live in the psyche, no doubt about it. We don't really live in the external world. External world makes situations about which we think and feel, and that's where we live. So that being very clear, how do you get an idea of your meaning life, of your feeling life? For this, the waking life, of course, is there, but we don't really, as I said, most people are unaware of the fact that they live in the psyche much more than in the physical. So they are not really looking at meanings and feelings very much. Even women, they talk about feelings, but do they actually keep track of where their feeling life is going? Not really. And men certainly do not have any awareness of what meanings they're blocking, what meanings they're suppressing, what meanings they're most interested in. This is why people constantly ask the question, what is the meaning of my life? Please tell me, what is the meaning of my life? Life seems drifting or something like that. Materialists say life is meaningless because they have lost touch with their meaning life. Now, if you watch dreams, dreams are an ongoing description of our meaning life. This is the thing that I discovered back in the late 90s when I was visiting Institute of Noetic Sciences. There I had a research assistant, research associate, who was doing her PhD or master's, I think, with me. And I gave the research problem of dreams. So we studied dreams together. We had a dream group. And it is amazing. We discovered that there are 5 kinds of dreams, indeed, because you had 4 kinds of experience plus the experience of the whole, 5 kinds of experiences. And corresponding to that, there are 5 different kinds of dreams. There are physical body dreams, vital body dreams, mental body dreams, archetypal body dreams, and different holistic spiritual dreams. So if we keep track of our dream life, not only we know where the meaning life is going, we know what feelings we have blocked, we know what archetypes are trying to come to us. Today people read books like The Attractor Principle. There are beliefs around, people have written about it, that attractors, these archetypes are attracted to us. They're like attractors, and we are attracted to them. But if you study your dreams, you'll find that yes, indeed, archetypes are appearing in these dreams, sometimes in the form of Jungian archetypes rather than Platonic archetypes. But Jung discovered that the notion of the same notion as archetypes as the part of the collective unconscious. And Jungian archetypes is nothing but representations of the Platonic archetype. So by studying these archetypes in our dreams, we can get an idea of which archetypes are attracted to us, or which archetypes are we attracted to. Similarly, by looking at mental dreams, we can tell where our meaning life is blocked and where it is taking us. And of course, nightmares tell us about where the feelings are blocked. And that one, I think, everybody is kind of becomes aware, because nightmares are very insistent. So you have to pay some attention to them. And most people do, I think.
So when you talk about like different stages of dream, like different, like you said, the body dream, the spirit, like you talk about different stages of dream. This is the first time I listen that concept. So how do you explain that? How can you?
Okay, so pick an aspect that you want to study. There are 5 kinds: feeling dreams, mental dreams, meaning dreams, physical dreams, which are day residue dreams, all the unfinished things that during the day. They don't tell you very much except where you need some closure. Because if physical things are haunting you, then obviously you are being blocked from getting into feelings and meanings that are much more important to your meaning life, feeling life, internal life. So the first thing we do is to unblock the physical. By that, we learn to arrive at closure with our physical things. For example, suppose you have to write a letter. Then it is better to write it today rather than postpone it tomorrow. Because if you don't, the dreams will remind you that you have an anxiety about writing a letter. You have done that. So that way. Feelings such as nightmares, that those are the dreams of blocked feelings. And nightmares tell you about what feelings you have blocked. And if you are getting nightmares, then certainly you should either talk to a friend, or if it is serious nightmares, recurring nightmares, then it's even okay to go to a psychologist just to get rid of these nightmares, because they are serious business. They're reminding you of something that you have suppressed, something that has become a trauma. And these traumas affect our behaviors. All of a sudden, you don't know why you are feeling in a certain way, and it easily can be cleared up. Now they have so many methods of dealing with trauma. For example, energy psychology. It's blocked energy. Feeling is really vital energy. And so if you have a nightmare, you are talking about vital energy blocks in your chakras. And any trained energy psychologist can clear this up. So it's a shame that people don't know how much of psychological help today is available. People are already using the quantum worldview. They are not sitting quietly with the materialist worldview who have dreams of no value. They are using dreams, but you have to find the expert to understand and start using this beautiful way of healing ourselves or taking ourselves to creative dimensions. As I said, archetypes give you the creative dimension. Where your meanings have stuck, that knowledge is also important, because that will also lead you to either clearing up your psychological hang-ups or take you further towards positive mental health.
So in your last book, you also talk about spirituality, and like, because I believe that we are like in a transition, like the humanity is like moving to like an awareness, like an awareness. And you talk about spirituality of the economic and business. So, and I can imagine like in business, like if you start talking about all these concepts, it's like they start, maybe they don't understand it, or they start to think like it doesn't match with what was business before. Like you are talking about like the new, like spirituality of economic, like a new way of do things. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Absolutely, because this is a very, very important subject. How can economics be spiritual? Huge challenge, but you mentioned oneness already. Spirituality is about oneness. This consciousness as the ground of being is one. If communication is instantaneous, not require any signal, then there is no distinction between objects anymore, right? They're all part of that oneness. So this concept that is coming out of quantum physics is a concept that mystics and spiritual traditions all accept as their basic premise. Of course, God, that's the word spiritual traditions use, God is supposed to be oneness. It's very clear from, if you read the mystics, like Jesus says, kingdom of God is everywhere. How can the kingdom of God is everywhere if God is not in oneness? Except that people misinterpret. People think that Jesus is talking about a person who sits on a throne. It's just that his kingdom is everywhere, but not that he is everywhere or she is everywhere. And that's the misconception that keeps us away from investigating oneness, exploring oneness. But that, of course, is very far from the business mind, which only wants to make a profit. So how is that connected to spirituality? It turns out that all human professions originally came from the exploring of the archetype. Every profession has an archetype that they explore. And the correct archetype for businesses to explore, a person who is interested in business, is abundance. This is what business person really is seeking, abundance. But of course, in today's materialist worldview, abundance is interpreted grossly as just money, material abundance. And that's where the mistake occurs. If we look for abundance as a whole person, then not only would I seek material abundance, more money in the bank, more profit, but also I would look for my mental health, I would look for my vital feelings, I would look for even intuitive wisdom. And this is what is lacking in businesses. If they counted ultimately what a person wants, what a person wants is happiness, what a person wants is joy in the life, what a person wants is love in his or her life. Not just money. What do we use the money for? We use the money to get happiness and other things too. And we invest in material stuff because we think all of our stuff, happiness, love, etc., can be gotten from just material stuff. But it's not that simple. A human being is not a material stuff that you can attract just by having money. It doesn't work that way, and everybody should know that. Quantum worldview is making it clear that human being is much more than a material machine, and therefore you have to bring in other ways to do even business in order to really fulfill your life. So when you do that, you get an economics which is spiritual economics, because you will realize that not only material goods should be the objects of economic arena, but economic arena must be expanded to also include subtle goods. We already do that to some extent. I mean, surprisingly, human beings already know that. With the discovery of printing press, we have been making representations of meaning and selling them in the form of books, and now CDs and DVDs and television programs, what have you. They're all selling meaning. They're all selling feeling. In other words, subtle objects. So the question is then that, is there any other way that we can start feeling vital energies, selling mental meaning, even selling archetypes? And what I have shown in a book called Quantum Economics is that, yes, we can. In Brazil, it's called Economic of Spiritualidade, I think, but it's the same meaning, spiritual economics or quantum economics, in which I have shown how to expand Adam Smith's capitalism to include goods like vital energy goods, or mental meaning goods, or even goods that will sell archetypes. If you think about it, archetypes we cannot represent. No, we already said that. So how do we sell archetypes? Archetypes can be embodied only by the human being. Archetypes cannot be embodied by a machine, cannot be embodied by anything that is material. So love, can it be sold as an economic product? Only if you accept the idea that I can not sell love, but I can be love. And when I am love, by working on my spiritual attainment, then people who sit in my proximity, they will feel my being of love. And that's how it works. So I have become a human capital for somebody else to make money investing on me. This concept has to come to the world of business. You know, today we wonder about labor force. What will happen to the labor force in the future? Followers of Trump, you know, they listen to Trump talking about canceling TPP, and they think that it's the trade agreements which have gotten their life so far behind the rich people. No, that is not true. Trade agreements do take away some jobs from America or any countries, developed countries, to the underdeveloped or developing countries, but it's only part of the story. The real part of the story is that so many more jobs every day are being lost to computers, lost to machines, robots. And this trend will continue. Almost every job that we think of today, even the job of a doctor in the allopathic sense, because they just read machine readings, which computers can do, even those jobs will be taken up by robots. Very soon, like within decades, when you go to a doctor, a robot will do all the examinations, read all the exam results, and analyze them, and give you the verdict that this is the medicine you take. It does not take a doctor, really. Does not take anything that the doctor does. So this is the future in the materialist worldview. So what would people do? I mean, this is a huge question, Pablo. What would people do with all this spare time? And the answer has to be found, because as a society, people go crazy if they don't have any work to do. So therefore, the idea of human capital that quantum economics allows us to introduce is a very useful one. Because what happens is that people work towards their better condition, betterment of their personal way that they live, life itself. And when they invest in their life itself, they also invest in the subtle economy. They want to do yoga, they want to do meditation, and therefore we need more yoga teachers, more meditation teachers. It's already happening to a certain extent. You know, 877 million people out of 7 billion are meditators. That's a huge percentage. So it's not very, I would say, no-brainer. It is a no-brainer to say that the condition can be created very easily in the future, where human beings will start developing themselves and contribute to the subtle economy and eventually become human capital themselves, on which people can invest and make money.
Yeah, that concept totally resonates with me, because like I teach entrepreneurship, and I truly believe that entrepreneurship is like a path. I mean, where you do something that you love. I mean, like when you rediscover your passion and do something that you love, entrepreneurship is like a path of healing.
Exactly. And you know from personal experience how much more we become productive if we are following our career passionately. That idea of bringing vital energy in our career happens only when we follow the archetype that we are designed to follow.
Yeah, I love it. I love that concept. So, and like, what about the like you talk about the world of possibilities at the beginning of this conversation? Like, can we go deeper a little bit more about that? Because like quantum physics and the microscopic level, there are like a lot of proof, you know, like, yeah, when the observer, where the observer watch is where like a particular goes. But like, what about in the macro level, you know?
Yeah. Now, this is a good question because this is also a red herring that materialists raise, and they think, therefore, they have a good point saying that quantum physics does not apply. Because indeed, it is true that in the macro level of matter, quantum effects get subdued. Newtonian physics approximately holds. So this is a mystery that the materialist loves to point out, that okay, we live in the macro world, and so if quantum effect gets subdued for the macro world of matter, then where is this? How do we create our own reality? No, we don't create the reality of matter. That is definitely beyond our possibility, because, well, of course we can change the behavior of electrons in a double slit experiment. But that means nothing. That's just an artificial experiment to show the wave nature of electron. And we have proved the point, but really, we don't encounter electrons in everyday life. We do a little bit. I mean, when you are watching a television screen, you are watching the movement of electrons. So if you want to, you can disrupt the picture on your television screen. But why do you want to do that? So that point of the materialist is a well-deserved point. But we are not saying that. Remember, in the beginning, I said that when the Dalai Lama challenged us, how do you take your paradigm to social questions, social problems, solving social concerns? Then one has to think of expanding the paradigm. The paradigm of quantum physics originally was discovered in connection with matter, but the expansion suggests itself, does it apply also to the mind? From the beginning of the Western civilization, this East-West division did not occurred only about 400 years ago. Before that, there was no East-West thought. People didn't talk like that. So in the beginning of Western civilization, that's 400 years ago, people discovered science, and of course, this idea of materialism have been taking hold. But even in the beginning, they have been very aware that there is also mind. Mind never went away. Descartes made a division between mind and matter so that church is pleased. Mind is the territory of God and matter is the territory of science. So sort of they divided up the territories. But what is mind? That question haunted. And how can mind be included? That question haunts us today. Materialists include mind by saying that mind is nothing but matter. It's a brain phenomenon. But there are just so many holes in that theory. I can go on mentioning them, but for one thing, if mind is matter, mind is brain, then there is no creativity, no scope of creativity, because brain can only process those things that it remembers, those things for which there is a known memory. But creativity is what takes us outside of the known memory. Creativity is freedom from the known, as Krishnamurti said one time. So creativity is the big proof that we need mind to be non-material, non-brain. And quantum physics allows us that. When we say mind is potentiality for consciousness to choose from, we are making an extension of quantum physics, which was discovered in connection with matter, but we are extending it also to the psyche. And this expansion is justified because if you ask, is mind quantum? Yes, mind is quantum because we have creativity of the mind. Creativity consists of discontinuous quantum leaps. And discontinuous quantum leaps cannot happen in a brain if it is Newtonian. Brain at the macro level, if it is Newtonian, then there is no quantum leaps of the brain. But mind does take quantum leaps. And then we can make a representation of the new meaning that mind discovers into the brain. And that's how brain also is expanded, but not by taking quantum leaps. It's the mind that takes the quantum leaps. So it's a very good extension, very good assumption that mind is quantum, and therefore mind is quantum possibility of consciousness to choose from. Non-locality of mind is also well known, the signal-less communication, because psychics, they communicate by telepathy. There are now so many good experiments which has established beyond doubt that psychics can communicate telepathically. Even ordinary human beings can communicate telepathically and do. We have events of synchronicity. That's another proof that mind has meaning, and meaning requires a non-physical mind. In synchronicity, you have a thought, at the same time a physical event has taken place. That has nothing to do in the first sight in your thought. Certainly your thought did not cause it, and yet they happened together. So what caused the two events? The cause is consciousness. Consciousness causes it because consciousness has both mental world and the physical world within it. So it can choose a physical possibility to actualize, at the same time choosing a mental possibility to actualize. And these gives us this events of synchronicity, where suddenly we understand the meaning of an event that has been obscuring us until now.
You talk about, in one of your interviews that I watched, you talk about zombie belief system, that we are like we are in the transition of this zombie belief system. But why do you think, I mean, like, I guess that is like evolution of human being, but why do you think that, or quantum physics, how can quantum physics explain like that zombie belief system exists or is existing, and like we are living?
Well, zombie is a word to signify what the scientific materialist human being would be like. Zombie is a word of a being without consciousness, like a robot.
Yeah, sure.
So this is the scientific materialist belief of themselves, that they are zombies. But of course, this is a pretend belief. No scientists are stupid enough to really believe that they are zombies. They take themselves very seriously. That's the proof that they do not believe they are zombies. But they pretend to believe they are zombies, so just to make a point. Just to make the point that everything is made of matter. And of course, if everything is made of matter, then they would be real zombies. Because if everything is matter, then there could be no subject that would arise ever in a computing machine. Because computing machines are reducible completely to elementary particles of matter. And therefore, nothing is left. There is no potentiality of being a subject. What makes the human brain different is that human brain can make a representation of the subject potentiality of consciousness. Consciousness has two kinds of potentiality. One is the object potentiality, about which everybody agrees, because we have these objects, material objects, mental objects, vital objects, supramental archetypal objects. But people forget that we also have a self looking at the object. Where does the experience of the subject come from? This is the question which sometimes is called the hard question of neurophysiology, because no brain scientist can even think of answering it. As I said, brain is reducible. There is no scope for it to be anything but an object. Objects are all reducible to elementary particles. So where does the subject that we experience with the brain, where does it come from? In quantum worldview, we said that the brain makes a representation of consciousness. Brain captures consciousness in a way to speak, in a manner of speaking, when consciousness tries to collapse, tries to actualize its potentiality into actuality. Instead of actualizing brain as an object, consciousness identifies with the brain. And this is why we identify with the brain. We think when I'm talking, it's really our brain that is talking. But brain self is not due to elementary particle interactions. Brain self is really potent because it has consciousness behind it. It's really representing consciousness itself and the causal power of consciousness. This is where our free will comes from. This is where our creativity comes from. They are all the gift of consciousness.
And that gives us power, right? Of creation.
Yes.
So do we have time for one more question?
Sure.
So you talk about also death, right? In your last book. It's coming in April 1st, right?
Yes.
So can you talk about that?
Yeah, I did talk about death considerable amount, because so many people suffer from fear of death. And quantum physics supports the idea of survival after death, even reincarnation again and again, until we have made the exploration of all the archetypes that are relevant to our personal growth. This is what quantum worldview enables us to see. And therefore, once you understand the quantum worldview, you will never have the fear of death. There is now so many data. I mean, look, near-death experiences. Materialists completely deny that people can have near-death experience, and yet thousands, if not millions of people are having this near-death experience thanks to marvels of cardiology. But people are brought back after they have cardiac arrest. People are brought back to life. So what happened? Why do they report that they had experiences during the time their brains are dead? This is what is literally happening, Carlos. I mean, this is absolutely fascinating. How can a dead brain have experience if consciousness is a brain phenomenon? How can they have a thought experience if mind arises in the brain? So these near-death experiences are living proof that there is consciousness and mind without the brain. Now, of course, materialists would say, but all these things, they're just images, like dreams, so why should we take them seriously? Valid point, but that's not all what the data says. Data also says that in some of the experiences, people describe what is called autoscopic experience. They see themselves as hovering on the ceiling of the operating room, and then they give vivid description of the actual operation that took place. Now, notice the word I'm using, actual operation that took place, not a generic operation, actual operation by the actual details. Every operation is different from every other operation because there will be details that will differ. And they describe these details, like which nurse had a sneeze during the operation, or which doctor had to take out something from his pocket, or had to ask the specific instruction to a nurse. They describe all these details. How could they describe such details if they were not actually seeing something? Of course, how do they see? That is also a good question, but we already settled that. They see by non-locality, using other people's eyes. So that's a minor problem, actually. But the major problem is, how can people have experiences like that when the brain is dead? A dead brain cannot have experience even according to the quantum worldview. But not completely true. Quantum worldview, quantum physics, has a wonderful, wonderful phenomenon called delayed choice. This is experimentally verified phenomenon. We can choose now, but if what I'm choosing now is caused by something in the past, then going backward in time, all those things in the past would be actualized just when I'm choosing the now when I'm revived. In this way, through delayed choice, we can even understand near-death experiences. So don't make any more mistakes about it. Quantum worldview is changing the way we live, the way we think, the way we should live in our society, how our social systems should be adjusted, because they must synchronize with the way we think and the way we should live.
It's a shift of new way of thinking,
yes,
which is totally resonate with me. You talk about incarnation too, and why do you think that Christianity doesn't support or believe in reincarnation?
Well, some spiritual traditions do support reincarnation.
No, I know, but Christianity, for example,
Christianity doesn't, Islam doesn't. But what happened in Christianity is that in the 5th century, the Christian faith had two big political divisions. One political division was the Gnostics, and the other political division was the mainstream. And the Gnostics were ousted. Gnostics believed in reincarnation. Up till the 5th century, reincarnation was the official part of official Christendom. But ever since 5th century, that particular meeting in Istanbul that discriminated against the Gnostics and got rid of the idea of reincarnation from its vocabulary. And because Islam came after the 5th century, it also became a dogma of the Islam that there is no such thing as reincarnation. But actually, reincarnation was a valid concept. It has to be a valid concept for all spiritual traditions anyway. There is a guy, philosopher named Dr. MacGregor, who has written a wonderful book. I don't remember the name of the book, but in this book he has shown that Christianity maintained the idea of reincarnation in a sort of backdoor kind of way. It has the concept of purgatory, but it never explains what people do in the purgatory. Why purgatory? It never explains that. Why purgatory? Because purgatory is just another way of saying that something happens here. And that is what reincarnation is about. Purgatory is more preparation before you can go to heaven. People don't go to heaven perfection after they have lived their life on earth, because most people live very imperfect lives. And until you are perfect, you cannot go to heaven. You know, Christianity has introduced the arbitrary idea that once you come into Christianity, Jesus will take you to heaven. No, Jesus can't. Nobody can. God even cannot. There's no laws of God. Just as we have laws of earth, similarly, God obeys laws too. And one of these laws are, unless you are spiritually perfect, you cannot become God. And that has to be included. And Christianity includes that by the concept of purgatory. So you wait in the purgatory until you are ready, and then you go to God. But what do you do in the purgatory? Of course, you meditate, you do things. And for that, you need to have experience. And quantum physics shows that for any experience, you need to come back to a human body. And that's how you gain experience. Therefore, in all religions, I think it is safe to say that room is made for not only survival after death, but also of reincarnation.
Yeah, you know what? I was talking with Dr. Sheffrey, with this neuroscientist here in California, in the Sophia University. He talked, and I truly have the same way of thinking. That it's like religion helps humanity, like helps in a big, like in a time like that humanity need it, you know. But I have the feeling that now religion is on the way of the evolution, you know, because it's like take you out the power of your own self.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about that.
Yes, I think that we are more and more recognizing the power of ourselves to change and to change the world. And it will change, Papa. There's no doubt in my mind. Yeah. The changes are coming. You know, I just went to Paradise Island to the Shivananda ashram, and the head of the ashram, Swami Sarupananda, told me, you know, I was a little bit more pessimistic than he was. So I said, what do you think? How many years do we have to go around with all these calamities that are taking place now before changes come about? Because my own, you know, I sometimes get a little pessimistic that maybe it will take several hundred years. But he said within the 100 years, and he's a good seer. I would rather trust him in terms of his intuition. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Amit. Thank you for your time, and I can't wait to have your book. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carl, for inviting me. And let's remind the listener of this Everything Answer book. That's the name of the book. It will come out on April 1st, and I hope you'll take a look at it. I think your life will be better for it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome.